We've got the play-in tournament in the thick of things right now, and the final game is coming up tomorrow. We've got the Heat versus the Bulls and the Kings versus the Pelicans. So that'll be the final determination and just how the playoffs shape up. But we're going to kick things off right now, jumping into the thick of it with the NBA playoff predictions. So this is just going to be for the first round. We'll get more in depth about who's going to be the NBA champions later on once the first round starts. But just for now, the Eastern Conference playoffs are looking like this right here. The Celtics will be playing the winner of the Bulls and the Heat. The Knicks will be playing the 76ers. The Bucks will be playing the Pacers, and the Cavs will be playing the Magic. So just for the first round predictions, the Celtics are going to beat whoever wins between the Bulls and the Heat. Jimmy Butler, actually, I'm pretty sure he got seriously injured, so I'm not a betting man. If I'm a betting man, I'm not putting a whole lot of money on the Heat in this game coming up against the Bulls. He sprained his ankle, and he's going to be out for at least several weeks. So at this point in the season, he's pretty much out for the rest of the season, which is unfortunate because, playoff Jimmy is somebody you can never really bet against, and he would have been obviously the one leading the charge for the Heat in the playoffs. So with him going down, it's pretty much a wrap. So the Bulls, I'm thinking, are going to beat the Heat tomorrow, and then the Celtics will beat the Bulls. Knicks and Sixers is an interesting one because if you'd have asked me going into this season if the Knicks would be a 2 seed, I would have said probably not. I would have ranked them somewhere in the 4 to 6 range, but they surpassed all expectations. They're the 2 seed, and on paper, they should win. On the same token, though, it is the Knicks, and you can never really be too sure with how they're going to play. Like, if any team is going to be the one to have some epic playoff collapse, then it will be the Knicks. So we'll have to see how this one plays out. I'm going to go with the Knicks. However, if anybody is going to get upset early on in these playoffs, I'm definitely thinking that it's going to be the Knicks. But I'll go with them hesitantly, but surely I will go with them. Then we've got the Bucks and the Pacers. I'm taking the Bucks just because, Giannis, Dame, whether or not that'll be enough to take them to the Eastern Conference Finals, that will be enough to get them past the first round. The Cavs and Magic, I'm just pretty much just going with the higher seeded team. But honestly, I don't care about the Cavs and Magic. To be completely honest, basketball is such a superstar-driven sport that if you're a team without a superstar, you can pretty much count your chances of winning an NBA championship goodbye. The only teams I can think of off the top of my head that have won a championship without a superstar, and by superstar I mean MVP caliber player, that would be the 2004 Pistons, and that's pretty much it. In the last 30 years, if you don't have a superstar, then you're toast. Yeah. That's pretty much it. So, unless you're just going to play insane defense like that Pistons team did, then, the Cavs, the Magic, it is... For a franchise to be successful, it is no worse spot to be in than the 5th seed or the 4th seed in the NBA. I would much rather be last, and at least you have some hope from the future, because it's always mostly the same teams that are in NBA purgatory. It's like you got the Hawks, you got the Cavs whenever LeBron's not around, though. The Hawks and the Cavs can bottom out sometime. You got the Magic. They're just like those teams that are always plucky. Every now and then, they'll slide up and be like a low-level playoff team. There was a streak in the early 2000s, or not early 2010s, where I think the Hawks made the playoffs every year from like 2008 to 2015 or something like that, and they only made it past the second round once. And you just always have those teams. So the fourth and fifth round or fourth and fifth seed matchup, who cares? I'll say the Cavs. They've got Donovan Mitchell. They've got Colin Sexton, I think. I mean, I haven't looked at the Cavs roster in who knows how long. But I mean, they're fine. Whoever wins, they're playing to get put out in the next round. So at the end of the day, it's irrelevant. A quick Google search is showing me that Colin Sexton got traded for the Jazz for Donovan Mitchell. So there you go. Now the Western Conference, that will be the Thunder versus the Kings. Pelicans once again. Doesn't really matter who wins between the Kings and the Pelicans because they're going to be a first round out. The Nuggets versus the Lakers. People were saying before the play-in game the Lakers should have tanked so they can wind up playing the Thunder instead of the Nuggets. And I mean, I kind of see the logic there, but that's just too risky. I think, playing like basketball, all it takes is one night where a team gets hot and your season's toast. And in a play-in tournament, it's not something that you want to risk. So I don't blame the Lakers for not tanking. And that being said, they're getting put out by the Nuggets. It's kind of funny how what was a Western Conference Finals matchup last year is now a first-round matchup. Then you got the Timberwolves and the Suns. I'm taking the Suns just because at the end of the day, in the NBA playoffs, like I said, superstar potential is what really wins the day. And I think Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, that should be enough to get past the Timberwolves. Like Anthony Edwards, they call him Ant-Man now, apparently. I dig that nickname. He's good. I don't think he's at the level right now where he can hold up in a playoff series against Kevin Durant. And if they're a young team, usually young teams like this, it takes getting upset in the playoffs to really teach them how to win, let them spend the offseason angry, mad that they let a great opportunity slip away. They come back with a vengeance that next year, and that's what I think will happen. Clippers and Mavs, I'm taking the Mavs just because the Clippers always choke. They're the Knicks of the Western Conference. And on the note of the Clippers, and also, Luka Doncic he almost beat the Clippers, him and the Mavs did a couple years back in the bubble when the Clippers were actually a force to be reckoned with. Now he's got Kyrie, and the Clippers, they've got James Harden, Kawhi, and Russell Westbrook, and Paul George. But most of those players are old and at the end of their rope. I think Luka and Kyrie are two of the best clutch players in the league, and they can turn it on when it counts in the playoffs. But Blake Griffin retired this week, and it's a sad exit for somebody who was at one point one of the biggest superstars in the NBA. He's leaving with a whimper, not with the bang that he came in with. And most people do. Not everybody can have the Kobe farewell tour, but it just sucks that injuries had to plague his career like they did. That being said, he's still one of the greatest in-game dunkers of all time. He was like a 5-time All-NBA player, 2-time All-NBA third team, 3-time All-NBA second team, a 6-time All-Star. I'll never forget when he won the slam dunk contest in 2011, jumping over that car. I was in the midst of, so the family was taking a vacation to the little White House in Warm Springs, Georgia. And I remember waking up the next morning, either that or going to bed that night and checking my phone just to see, or my iPod at the time, didn't have phones yet. And I just Googled the dunk contest to see what happened. And I remember seeing the pictures of Blake Griffin jumping over the car, and I was like, really? Because we were busy, I couldn't watch it. I was like, the one time I can't watch a dunk contest, somebody jumps over a car. And so that will always be my first thought when I think of Blake Griffin. I'll think of that, the fact that he dated Kendall Jenner, and the fact that he had beef with Chris Paul. That is Blake Griffin's legacy as it stands right now. He's definitely going to get his jersey retired by the Clippers. Were they a decent franchise? I wouldn't think so. But when you're the Clippers and you really have nothing to celebrate, might as well. I remember they actually got him to re-sign in like 2017 by, in the pitch meeting, having his jersey lifted up to the Raptors, talking about how he was like Mr. Clipper, and then they traded him like a year later. So just for that alone, they owe him a jersey retirement, because that is a brutal sales pitch to get somebody to stay only to ship them out like basically immediately. But that Lob City Clippers team, geez, I had a dyslexic moment there for a second. They are probably one of the best teams of my lifetime to never win an NBA championship. And the other best team I would say the best team of my lifetime, at least when I was paying attention to basketball. I know old heads will probably say, what about the '05 Suns? But to me, it's the 2017 Rockets. 2017 Rockets. 2018, they ran it back and did okay. They got put out by the Warriors again. But that 2017 season, when they took the Warriors to 7 and went 0 for 20, I'll never forget that series. I'll never forget that game when the Rockets missed 27 threes in a row in one of the most catastrophic choke jobs of all time. Like, that could have changed so much as far as NBA narratives go. If the Rockets win that series, James Harden has a ring, Chris Paul has a ring, Mike D'Antoni has a ring, and people would not be able to say that he coaches a losing basketball style, which, I mean, based on the record, he does. KD going to Golden State would have been a failure for the first season. The amount of flack that Kevin Durant would have gotten that offseason if he went to the Golden State Warriors, the 73-9 Warriors, and didn't even make the finals that year, it would have been insane. I would have loved to have seen it. Didn't happen. And that Chris Paul will probably go down as the player of this era who didn't get a ring that absolutely should have. And every time he got this close and lost, it was because of some injury or some choke. And it's just sad to see. He said that he's coming back next season for his 20th year. But at this point, I don't see him getting a ring. It's sad, but not everybody gets one. That's what makes him so special. So, congrats to Blake Griffin for a career. Chris Paul, maybe he can equal out in year 20, but at this point, the way he's playing, he's pretty much he's washed at this point. He played the Lakers and they played the Kings this week in the play-in tournament, got put out 118-94. And Chris Paul had 3 points, 2 assists, and 1 rebound. That is just completely pitiful. I mean, at this point, winning a ring is really the only thing keeping him going, I would have to imagine. Because when you're putting up numbers like that in big-time playoff games, like, it's time to call it a career. Like, especially when you used to be an MVP candidate back in your prime. It's always sad to see legends get washed. Klay Thompson had 0 points, 1 assist, and 4 rebounds on 32 minutes of play, and he's entering free agency. So, from all the talk that's going around, Klay Thompson's not coming back to the Warriors. From a pure, ruthless business perspective, if I'm the Warriors, I'm letting Klay walk. However, there is the sentiment of him being a key cog in the dynasty. I always love it when players can spend their whole time on one team. So I would love it if Clay were to stay, but if I'm the Warriors, I'm making him a good offer. If he doesn't take it, it's no skin off their back if he walks. I mean, 0 points on 32 minutes. That's sad. And being a great player in the past can only maintain your job for so much. And I think it's just time to have a new era begin in Golden State. So I'll give him an offer. If he doesn't take it, then so be it. Now, I don't even know if there's much of a market for Klay Thompson, honestly, just because the injuries that he had a couple years back where he tore one ligament and then he came back and he tore the other one, and he missed pretty much like a season and a half, 2 seasons of his career. And he was just never the same after that. And I don't see a team out there that like Klay Thompson's the missing piece. I mean, he had a particularly awful stat line against the Kings. Like there's no market for 0 points, 1 assist, and 4 rebounds. But I mean, he's not always that bad. His regular season stats this year were 17.9 points a game on 30 minutes. And I mean, it's not that far removed. Like his career average is 20 points. 20 points a game. So like it's only 2 less. He's shooting 2% less from the field, and he's shooting 3% less from three. So I mean, like he's fallen off slightly on the numbers, but it's only going to get worse. He's 34 years old, and I don't know. I don't see a market for him. I mean, maybe if he went to like the Clippers, I mean, for what that's worth, I can't imagine he'll be that expensive. He can be a bench player with Russell Westbrook, and that can just be the safe haven for soon-to-be washed NBA stars. But, I mean, that's a sad place to find yourself if you're Klay Thompson. Steph, he had 22, 2, and 4. Steph, I think he will be a Warriors lifer, but I don't think the Warriors are going to be competing for his 5th ring anytime soon. Now the Lakers beat the Pelicans 106-101. LeBron had 23, 9, and 9. AD had 20, 0, and 15. Always love to see a stat line like that from a center, just a black hole in the paint. Zion was 45 and 11. And sometimes in basketball, what it really comes down to is just one quarter, because the Pelicans in the second quarter got outscored 34-16. In every other quarter, they outscored the Lakers. So if they just would have showed up to play in the second quarter, they'd be in the playoffs right now. That and the fact that they had 62 of their points, the Pelicans did, in the paint. And only 36 of the Lakers' points came in the paint, which means they were getting a lot more three-point opportunities. And as all these stat nerds will love to tell you these days, 3 is more than 2. So, I mean, that combination, just not a good one. The Lakers also had 7 blocks and 8 steals to the Pelicans' 2 and 4. So that second quarter, the Lakers showed up, and the Pelicans didn't, and that made all the difference. Now, also in NBA news, the Team USA roster got finalized. It is LeBron, Steph, KD, Kawhi Leonard, Joel Embiid, Devin Booker, Jason Tatum, AD, Anthony Edwards, Tyrese Halliburton, Drew Holiday, and Bam Adebayo. That's a good squad. With a team like that, we're definitely winning the gold. I'm confident in saying that. It's good to see LeBron going to the Olympics one last time. I hope he enjoys it, soaks it all in. I mean, that a starting five of Steph, KD, LeBron, Kawhi, and Joel Embiid, that's not something to sneeze at. And I think, honestly, they'll cakewalk. And it's see, this is what happens. And I've been through this cycle before when it comes to USA basketball. Is all the great players show up, cakewalk to a gold medal. Eventually, the great players stop showing up, and we start sending out a bunch of Tyrese Halliburton, Drew Holiday, Bam Adebayo type players, and eventually they get beat, and everybody in the U.S. gets all up in a tizzy, and then all the LeBrons and KDs and Stephs go win one for America, and then maybe even they'll come back the next Olympics. But then we get cocky again. The good players stop showing up. The not bad players, but the non-superstar players take over Team USA, get embarrassed again, rinse, wash, and repeat for the rest of time. So we're on an uptick right now. In 12 years, I'm sure we'll be looking at a squad full of young players and old vets. But somebody who won't be playing for Team USA anytime soon is Janae Porter because he was banned for life by Commissioner Adam Silver. As far as I know, he's the first NBA player ever to get banned for life. Maybe I'm missing somebody, but I think this is a new one for the NBA. Actually, I take that back. Michael Ray Richardson, back in the 80s, he was like a major drug addict, and he ended up getting banned for life, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he got banned in 1986 for 3 violations of the league's drug policy. But they took away his ban for life in 1988 and said he could come back, but he never did. He went and played overseas in Europe. But so, okay, Michael Ray Richardson and Jonte Porter are the only two people to ever be banned for life. And Michael Ray Richardson was a much better player than Jonte Porter. He was a 4-time All-Star, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, 3-time steals leader. Jonte Porter averaged 3 points a game and spent most of his career in the G League. He played 37 games total. So I can't say it's a major loss for the Raptors. But he's 24 years old. Like, he's mine and Levi's age. Just threw his life away, at least as far as the NBA life goes. For something, he was making $400,000 a year, which in the NBA, is that a lot of money compared to the players like LeBron who are making like $30 million a year just on salary, not counting endorsements? No, it's not. But when you look at the average person, $400,000 a year is plenty to live off of. You're not going to go hungry. Yet, apparently it wasn't enough for Jonte Porter because he placed 13 bets on NBA games using some friends' online betting accounts. And the amount of money he was placing on these bets ranged from $15 to $22,000. In total, just this season alone, he bet $55,000, and his total winnings were $21.9 thousand. So, I mean, instead of having $400,000, he now has $420,000. I hope that's worth it for him because I can't. It wouldn't be for me. I just don't get in what world that math makes sense, where you're going to risk all of that when you're making $400,000 a year for $20K. Now, the reason he got caught is because $20K wasn't enough for him. Him and his associates got greedy. What happened was, like I said, he's a bench warmer. Nobody knew about him unless you're a Raptors fan before this scandal broke. And what happened was, the reason that he didn't bet on his own performance. The reason it's so bad, though, is if you're an NBA player and you're betting on NBA games, you know inside information that other people aren't privy to. You know who's playing hurt. You know what the team's medical staff is more likely to provide. Like you know inside information, so you make more educated bets. And what he did is he knew he was playing hurt, and he basically had his friend make a prop bet that he would play less than 5 minutes in whatever game it was. I think it was March 26th against the Kings or something like that. But his friend bet like $50,000 on a bench player playing 5 minutes or less. And he only played 3 minutes in the game. And the bet, he would have made $1.1 million. But because he was such a low profile player, Vegas got suspicious when they saw somebody bet that much money on a random player that they flagged the bet and they didn't pay out, so he didn't make the 1.1 million, and the league got notified, and that started this whole investigation in the first place. So at the end of the day, he did it to himself, nothing to be upset about, but rest well, Jonte Porter's NBA career. We barely knew ye. Now, one sun sets and another sun rises as Caitlin Clark became the first pick of the WNBA draft with the Indiana Fever, which if you saw SNL this last week, she made an appearance, and it was pretty funny. She was roasting Michael Shea about that. I would check it out if you haven't seen it. But the final thing we're going to get into tonight is Devin Haney versus Ryan Garcia takes place this Thursday. And Ryan Garcia has been acting wild on social media in the lead up to this fight. Like, I don't know what it is about him. He's going full Kanye, and maybe not full Kanye, but he's going like 3/4 Kanye, and that's too much Kanye for most people to handle. He's just been posting crazy, cryptic stuff on social media. We talked about it a couple weeks back where he posted that Ryan Garcia was dead. I mean, granted, it gets people talking, but they're not talking about the right stuff, and it just makes him look stupid, and I really want Devin Haney to knock him out, and I think that Devin Haney will win in a TKO in this fight. So Ryan Garcia is an inch taller, and Devin Haney has a 2 centimeter reach advantage, so that kind of evens out. But Devin Haney's 31-0 with 15 knockouts. Ryan Garcia is 24-1 with 20 knockouts, and his one loss was to Gervonta Davis, and that was a TKO. And it really wasn't that close of a fight. Like, Ryan Garcia was clearly outclassed, and I think Devin Haney is in a Gervonta Davis category where he'll handle Ryan Garcia with the same amount of ease. And, I mean, the way Ryan Garcia has been acting on social media and the fact that he really hasn't beat anybody that impressively in his, like, name-wise, in his boxing career, if he loses this fight, he's going to have to take a back seat for a while and build up his rep again as a serious contender. Because, like, Devin Haney hasn't fought Tank Davis yet. Ryan Garcia got to just because he was a social media influencer for years before he hit the boxing world. So it gave him some clout, and they got to make a big payday. But Ryan Garcia, acting as crazy as he's been lately, has actually hurt boxing in a way because him and Devin Haney got in some shove match at their weigh-in, trying to pretend like they were in WWE, but all they ended up doing was getting kicked out of the chance to throw out the first pitch at the Mets game. So that's one less way they get to promote their fight. And I don't like it when boxing tries to take one out of WWE's book, because at the end of the day, whenever they're doing the weigh-ins and stuff, and like talking trash is one thing, but like when they start trying to like shove each other or fight each other, and it just looks so stupid and so fake, but not fake in like the endearing WWE way, because if you're watching WWE, you know that it's scripted, and that's what you're here for, is the corny, goofy stuff. Like, that's part of the fun. If you're in boxing, it just comes off as like silly, because like, okay, in WWE, when they're doing a contract signing, which is their version of the weigh-in, like, people go through tables. It's not like, oh, somebody shoves somebody else and there's a pull apart. And like when WWE does a pull apart, it's crazy. You have like the entire dressing room comes back and they have to separate the wrestlers from each other. And one of them will get loose and he'll jump over all the other security guards and he'll get back. Like, it's that kind of stuff in a scripted environment that can make it entertaining. In boxing, you know, if it was real, they would just knock each other out. And you know they can't do that because it's all staged. At least the build-up is. Like, obviously they pre-planned, or if they didn't, they at least had some idea that they were going to get into a little a little measuring contest. And it just makes them all look silly, because you got to think about, like, if you're a boxer and you're to weigh in, like, what good does pushing somebody do? Because you're about to fight in a day. Like, realistically, like, just keep it all bottled up until then. If you push him, like, and you get a little shoving match, it doesn't make you look tough. It makes you look petty. And you know, if they were to actually fight each other, then all it would lead to is a bunch of lawsuits and no fight happening, and none of them will make any money. So they're not actually going to fight. So what's the point? At least in UFC, Conor McGregor, like, whenever they do that stuff, he went loose that one time and just started throwing chairs and breaking glass in a tour bus. Like, at least give us some of that. Like, that was UFC doing WWE correctly. This is just ridiculous, and it serves no purpose. But I'm excited for the fight nonetheless. I think Devin Haney's going to win. I hope Devin Haney wins. And we'll have to see how it plays out. And we'll be here next week covering it. We will see y'all then.